The stars above the HFY homeworld had never looked so empty. Ambassador Veltar stood in the observation deck of the orbital defense station, watching the distant flashes of light that marked another fallen colony. Each flash meant thousands of his people were dead or enslaved. "Sir, we have lost contact with Meridian Colony," reported Communications Officer Zethka, her voice barely above a whisper. The young HFY's hands shook as she operated the console. "That makes 7 colonies in 2 weeks. Veltar closed his large, dark eyes and felt his heart sink deeper. The Zarthak horde was moving faster than anyone had predicted. These insect-like warriors had appeared from the outer rim of the galaxy like a plague, destroying everything in their path. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. Their soldiers were brutal and showed no mercy. "What about our defense fleet?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Admiral Kevlon reports that we have lost half our ships," Zethka replied. "The remaining vessels are falling back to the inner systems. The Admiral says we might have 3 days before they reach our core worlds." 3 days. Veltar's people had lived in peace for over 1,000 years. They had built a civilization based on trade, science, and cooperation. The HFY had never needed to fight wars. They solved problems with words and wisdom, not weapons and violence, but words meant nothing to the Zarthak. "Send out the distress call," Veltar said quietly. "Broadcast it on all emergency frequencies. Tell anyone who will listen that we need help." Zethka nodded and began working at her station. Within minutes, the message was racing across space at faster than light speeds, reaching dozens of star systems. The call was simple and desperate. "This is the HFY coalition. We are under attack by the Zarthak horde. Our defenses are failing. We request immediate military assistance from any friendly civilization. Please help us." Hours passed. A few responses came back, but they were all the same. The Altarians were too far away. The Centauri Republic was dealing with their own problems. The Vegan Empire expressed sympathy, but could not spare any ships. The Rigel Federation said they would consider sending aid, but it would take weeks to organize, weeks they did not have. Veltar was about to give up hope when Zethka suddenly straightened at her console. "Sir, we have a response. It's from a system I have never heard of before." "Which system?" Veltar asked. "So, it's a small system in the outer rim. Only one inhabited planet, called Earth. The response is from something called the Earth Defense Force." Veltar felt a spark of hope. Any help was better than no help. "What do they say?" Zethka read the message aloud. "This is Captain Jake Miller of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. We are prepared to send military assistance immediately. Our battle group can reach your position in 48 hours. Hold on, help is coming." The ambassador felt relief wash over him. 48 hours? That's faster than anyone else promised. What kind of ships are they sending? "According to their message, 3 vessels, Zethka replied. "A destroyer called Thunderbolt, a heavy cruiser called Wolverine, and an assault ship called Bulldog." 3 ships? Veltar's hope dimmed slightly. The Zarthak had hundreds of vessels. How could 3 ships make any difference? But he pushed those doubts aside. These humans, whoever they were, had volunteered to help when no one else would. That had to count for something. "Send a reply," Veltar ordered. "Thank them for their quick response. Tell them we will transmit all available intelligence about Zarthak forces and tactics. And Zethka, ... He paused. "Tell them we are grateful." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Miller stood on the bridge of his destroyer, the EDF Thunderbolt. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. His uniform was simple and practical, without the fancy decorations that other species seemed to love. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for the jump to faster-than-light speed. "Sir, we have confirmation from command," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark, his intelligence officer. Admiral Peterson has authorized Operation Good Samaritan. We are cleared to engage hostile forces in defense of Kethver civilians. Miller nodded. He had expected resistance from Earth Command. Getting involved in alien wars was always controversial. But when the distress call had come through, Miller had not hesitated. People were dying, and Earth had the power to help. That made the choice simple. What do we know about these Zarthek? Miller asked. Lieutenant Clark pulled up her datapad. According to Kethver intelligence, they are an insectoid species from a high-gravity desert world. Average height is about 7 feet. They have natural armor plating and are extremely aggressive. Their technology is roughly equal to ours, maybe slightly more advanced. And the Kethver? Peaceful herbivores. They have been spacefaring for about 2,000 years, but have never had to fight a real war. Their ships are designed for exploration and trade, not combat. Their weapons are defensive at best. Miller understood why the Kethver were losing so badly. It was like watching farmers try to fight professional soldiers. The outcome was predictable and tragic. Sir, Captain Turner of the Wolverine is requesting a conference call, reported Ensign Dan Hayes at the communications station. Put her through, Miller said. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Lisa Turner on the bridge of her heavy cruiser. She was a woman in her 40s with red hair and green eyes that showed both intelligence and determination. Behind her, Commander Rick Stone appeared on a split screen from his assault ship. Jake, I've been reading the intel reports, Turner said without preamble. These Zarthek sound like bad news. The Kethver have already lost half their fleet. No, Miller replied. But that's exactly why they need our help. Stone, a big man with dark skin and a deep voice, leaned forward. 3 ships against hundreds. Those aren't good odds even for us. Miller smiled slightly. Rick, when have humans ever worried about bad odds? Besides, we have something these Zarthek have probably never faced before. What's that? Turner asked. Deathworlders who fight back. The 3 captains understood what Miller meant. Earth was not a gentle world like most inhabited planets. Humans had evolved in a place where everything from the weather to the wildlife tried to kill them on a regular basis. They had learned to adapt, to survive, and when necessary, to fight with a ferocity that most peaceful species could not imagine. Jump coordinates are locked in, reported the navigation officer. We can depart on your command, sir. Miller looked at his fellow captains on the screen, then at his own crew. These men and women had volunteered to travel across the galaxy, to help people they had never met, knowing they would be outnumbered and outgunned. But they were ready anyway, because that's what humans did. They helped those who could not help themselves. All ships, prepare for jump, Miller commanded. Let's go show these Zarthek what humans are made of. The 3 Earth ships vanished into faster-than-light space, racing toward a battle that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. The Kethver staging area was a collection of damaged ships and scared faces. Admiral Zeekthan paced the command deck of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing despair. Red markers showed Zarthak forces advancing on 3 fronts. Blue markers showed his own forces, scattered and weakened after weeks of fighting. Admiral, the human ships are dropping out of hyperspace, reported his aide, a young officer named Kev Tan. They are requesting docking permission. Zeekthan straightened his tall, thin frame. The humans had arrived faster than promised. Perhaps there was hope after all. Grant them permission. And prepare the main briefing room. I want to meet these humans immediately. As the 3 Earth ships approached the Kethver station, Zeekthan studied them through the observation port. They were smaller than he had expected, with dark gray hulls and simple designs. No fancy decorations or elegant curves like most civilized ships. They looked purely functional, like tools built for a specific job. They appear to be military vessels. Kevton observed. But they are much smaller than our ships. How can 3 small ships help us against the Zarthak? Zekthon did not answer. He was wondering the same thing. 20 minutes later, the human commanders entered the briefing room. Admiral Zekthon was immediately struck by how different they looked from any species he had encountered. They were bipedal like his own people, but shorter and more heavily built. Their movements were smooth and controlled, like predators. But their faces were calm and friendly. Captain Jake Miller stepped forward first. He was wearing a simple uniform without excessive decoration. Admiral Zekthon, I presume? I'm Captain Jake Miller, commanding the Earth Task Force. These are Captain Lisa Turner and Commander Rick Stone. Zekthon performed the traditional Kefver greeting, touching his forehead with his long fingers. I am honored by your presence, Captain Miller. Though I must confess, I am surprised by the size of your force. 3 ships is all we could spare on short notice, Miller replied. But they're good ships with good crews. We're here to help. Captain Turner, the red-haired woman, looked around the briefing room. We've been studying your tactical reports. During our journey, these Zarthak seem to prefer direct assault tactics. Indeed, Zekthon said sadly. They attack in waves, overwhelming our defenses through sheer numbers. Our ships are not designed for heavy combat. We have lost many good crews. Commander Stone, the large dark-skinned human, leaned forward. What can you tell us about Zarthak biology? Any weaknesses we should know about? Zekthon activated the holographic display. A 7-foot-tall insectoid figure appeared, covered in natural armor plating. The Zarthak are apex predators from their homeworld. They evolved on a planet with twice the gravity of most inhabited worlds. They are incredibly strong and fast. Their natural armor can stop most small weapons. The humans exchanged glances. Zekthon noticed that none of them seemed worried by this information. Their homeworld is a desert planet, Zekthon continued. They prefer hot, dry conditions. They have excellent night vision and can go weeks without water. They are perhaps the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Lieutenant Amy Clark, the human intelligence officer, made notes on her datapad. Sounds like they're from a pretty soft world compared to Earth, she said casually. Zekthon blinked his large eyes in confusion. Soft world? Captain Miller, I do not understand. Their planet has twice normal gravity and extreme temperatures. Miller smiled slightly. Lieutenant Clark is from Phoenix, Arizona. She's used to desert heat. And our training includes operations in conditions much worse than what you've described. But surely you understand the danger, Zekthon pressed. The Zarthak have never been defeated in battle. They have conquered 12 star systems in the past year alone. Admiral, Captain Turner said gently, we appreciate the warning. But humans have been dealing with dangerous situations for a long time. It's kind of what we do. Zekthon looked at his aide Kevton, who seemed equally confused. These humans acted like they were discussing a minor inconvenience, not a threat. That had terrified the galaxy. Perhaps you would like to see the latest battle footage, Zekthon suggested. It might help you understand what we are facing. The holographic display shifted to show a recent engagement. Zarthak warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons tearing through Kefver vessels like paper. The insectoid warriors could be seen boarding disabled ships, their movements quick and deadly. They show no mercy, Zekthon explained. They take prisoners only for slave labor. Their battle cry translates roughly to death to the weak. Commander Stone watched the footage with professional interest. Their boarding tactics are pretty standard. Nothing we haven't seen before. What kind of weapons do they use? Plasma rifles, shock weapons, and their natural claws and mandibles, Kevton answered. They prefer close combat when possible. Close combat? Stone grinned. That's convenient. Marines love close combat. Admiral Zekthon felt a chill run down his spine. The human had smiled when discussing close combat with the galaxy's most feared warriors. What kind of species were these humans? Captain Miller, Zakthan said carefully, I must ask. What is your species' experience with warfare? Miller considered the question. Well, we've been fighting wars for our entire recorded history. But we've never fought an alien species before, if that's what you're asking. And your planet? What is it like? Lieutenant Clark answered before Miller could speak. Oh, Earth is beautiful. We have every climate you can imagine. Deserts, ice caps, jungles, mountains, oceans. The weather can be pretty extreme sometimes, and we have some interesting wildlife, but it's home. Interesting wildlife? Kefton asked. Bears, sharks, venomous snakes, big cats, crocodiles. Clark listed casually. Plus insects, spiders, jellyfish, and various other creatures that can kill you if you're not careful. Nothing too unusual. Zakthan and Kefton stared at the human female. She had just described what sounded like a death world, yet she spoke of it with obvious affection. Captain Miller, Zakthan said slowly, what is Earth's gravity? Standard. Earth gravity is about 9.8 meters per second squared, Miller replied. Why? Zakthan quickly calculated the conversion. Earth's gravity was actually higher than the Zarthak homeworld. These humans had evolved in conditions more extreme than the galaxy's most feared warriors. And your atmospheric pressure? Kefton asked weakly. About 14.7 pounds per square inch at sea level, Turner answered. Though it varies with altitude and weather patterns. Again, Zakthan did the calculation. The numbers were staggering. Earth's atmospheric pressure was nearly twice that of most inhabited worlds. The temperature ranges that Lieutenant Clark had described as pretty extreme would be fatal to most species. Admiral, Miller said, noticing the aliens' shocked expressions. Is there a problem? You both look a little pale. Zakthan realized that the humans had no idea how unusual their homeworld was. To them, surviving in conditions that would kill most galactic civilizations was perfectly normal. No problem, Captain, Zakthan said quietly. I am simply beginning to understand why you volunteered to help us. The tactical display beeped, showing new movement from the Zarthak forces. They were massing for another attack, this time targeting the Kethver industrial world of Kepler Prime. Looks like we're about to get our first taste of action, Stone observed. When do we leave? Commander, are you certain your ships are ready? Zakthan asked. The Zarthak will have overwhelming numbers. Miller stood up, followed by his fellow. Officers, Admiral, there's something you should know about humans. We're really not that impressed by overwhelming numbers. We've been dealing with bad odds since before we left our home planet. As the humans prepared to leave the briefing room, Zakthan called out, Captain Miller, may I ask you one more question? Of course. Why did you come? Your people have no connection to ours. You gain nothing from helping us. Miller paused at the door. Admiral, someone sent out a distress call. People were dying. That's all the reason we needed. After the humans left, Zakthan sat in silence for a long moment. Kefton finally spoke. Admiral, what have we done? What kind of species did we just call for help? Zakthan looked at the tactical display, where 3 small human ships were moving toward the Zarthak fleet. I think, Kefton, we may have just called for the most dangerous species in the galaxy. And thank the stars we did. The mining colony of Vexhara Prime had been peaceful for over 200 years. Its 3 million inhabitants worked the rich mineral deposits that fed the Kethver industrial complex. Now it was about to become a battleground. War Master Thekler stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching the small planet grow larger on his screens. The insectoid commander was 8 feet tall, with black chitinous armor covering his body. His 4 eyes glowed red with anticipation. This would be another easy victory. Report, Thekler clicked in his native language. 73 ships in. Attack formation, reported his tactical officer. The colony has minimal defenses. We detect some Kethver patrol vessels, but nothing significant. Thekler's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his species. The Kethver were weak as always. Their ships would flee at the first sign of real fighting. Begin the assault, he ordered. Take the colony intact. We need the mining. Equipment. The Zarthak fleet moved forward like a swarm of angry insects. Their dark ships bristled with weapons, ready to deliver death to anyone who opposed them. This was how the Zarthak had conquered 12 star systems. Speed, violence, and overwhelming force. But as they approached the planet, something unexpected happened. 3 unknown ships dropped out of hyperspace directly in their path. War Master, the tactical officer reported with confusion. We have new contacts, 3 vessels of unknown design. They are not Kethver. Thekler studied the tactical display. The 3 ships were much smaller than his vessels, but they positioned themselves between the Zarthak fleet and the planet. It was either very brave or very stupid. Open communications, Thekler ordered. Let us see who dares to challenge the Horde. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of one of the unknown ships. A bipedal creature sat in the command chair, wearing a simple gray uniform. The creature had pale skin, brown hair, and small blue eyes. It looked soft and weak. This is Captain Jake Miller of the Earth Defense Force, the creature said calmly. You are approaching a protected system. Turn around and leave, or we will stop you. Thekler's mandibles clicked with amusement. I am War Master Thekler of the Zarthak Horde. We do not recognize your authority, creature. Stand aside or be destroyed. I'm afraid I can't do that, Miller replied. These people asked for our help. We don't abandon people who need us. 3 small ships against my entire fleet? Thekler laughed, a harsh buzzing sound. You will be dead in minutes. Maybe, Miller said, but we'll make those minutes count. The transmission ended. Thekler stared at the screen in disbelief. These humans, whatever they were, seemed to think they could fight the entire Zarthak horde with 3 ships. It was madness. War Master, what are your orders? The tactical officer asked. Destroy them, Thekler snarled. Show them what happens to those who defy the horde. The battle began with a massive Zarthak assault. 50 ships opened fire at once, sending streams of plasma and missiles toward the 3 human vessels. It should have been over in seconds. Instead, the human ships moved like nothing Thekler had ever seen. They spun and twisted through space, avoiding fire that should have been impossible to dodge. The lead ship, the Thunderbolt, rolled completely, upside down while firing its weapons, pulling forces that would crush any normal crew. How are they doing that? The tactical officer clicked in amazement. Their pilots must be dead from the acceleration, another officer added. No living thing can survive those maneuvers. But the human ships kept fighting. The heavy cruiser Wolverine dove straight through an asteroid field, using the rocks as cover while its weapons picked off Zarthak fighters. The assault ship Bulldog charged directly at a group of enemy vessels, firing everything it had. Thekler watched in growing anger as his forces took casualties. These humans fought like nothing he had encountered before. They used tactics that made no sense, taking risks that no sane commander would attempt. Launch the fighters, he ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. 100 Zarthak fighters swarmed toward the human ships. But again, the impossible happened. Human fighters launched from the 3 ships, and though they were outnumbered 10-1, they fought with deadly skill. Major Pete Collins led the human fighter squadron in his craft, the Hawk. He dove through a formation of Zarthak fighters, his weapons blazing. Behind him, Lieutenant Sarah Wilson and Sergeant Tony Martinez followed, their ships dancing through enemy fire like they were performing an aerial ballet. This is Hawk Leader, Collins radioed to his squadron. Remember your training. These bugs are fast, but they're not used to real combat pilots. Show them how Earth pilots fight. The human fighters moved through the battle like sharks through a school of fish. They used the debris field around the planet as cover, hiding behind asteroids and wrecked ships. When Zarthak fighters pursued them, the humans led them into traps. Vekler watched his fighter squadrons being picked apart by a handful of human pilots. It was impossible. His warriors were the best in the galaxy. War Master, the tactical officer reported, we have lost 23 fighters. The humans have lost only 2. How? Vekler demanded. Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Impact on Deck 7, came the damage report. Hull breach on Deck 12. We are under attack. On the tactical display, Vekler saw the human assault ship Bulldog firing at his flagship. The smaller ship was staying close, using the larger vessel's bulk to avoid return fire. It was a tactic no civilized species would use because it required the attacking ship to operate in conditions that would kill most crews. Return fire, Vekler ordered. Destroy that ship. But the Bulldog was too close and too fast. It rolled around the bone crusher like a fighter, its weapons carving through armor plating. Commander Rick Stone was putting his ship through maneuvers that defied every rule of space combat. On the bridge of the Bulldog, Stone gripped his command chair as the ship spun through another impossible turn. Give me everything we've got on their engine section, he ordered. Let's see how tough these bugs really are. The human weapons, while simpler than Zarthak technology, were used with devastating precision. They targeted weak points, exploited design flaws, and concentrated fire where it would do the most damage. The humans fought like they had studied Zarthak ships for years. Not minutes. The turning point came when Lieutenant Ben Carter's fighter was hit by enemy fire. His ship spun out of control, crashing into the surface of Vexhara Prime. The Zarthak, monitoring the battle, expected the pilot to be dead. Instead, Carter survived the crash and immediately began setting up defensive positions in the ruins of a mining facility. When a Zarthak hunting party landed to capture him, they found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. A human soldier fighting for his life. Carter had grown up in the mountains of Colorado, where he learned to hunt and track from his father. He knew how to use terrain to his advantage, how to set traps, and how to make every shot count. The Zarthak warriors, used to direct assault tactics, found themselves being hunted by their supposed prey. This is impossible, clicked Sub-Commander Vextar as another of his warriors fell to a human trap. One creature cannot fight an entire squad, but Carter was doing exactly that. He used the mining equipment as weapons, turned the facilities, power systems into bombs, and led the Zarthak through a maze of tunnels and chambers where their numbers meant nothing. For 6 hours, one human held off 12 Zarthak warriors. When the rescue team finally reached him, Carter was still fighting, still setting traps, still refusing to give up. Back in space, the battle was turning. The 3 human ships had taken damage, but they were still fighting. The Zarthak fleet, meanwhile, had lost over 30 vessels to an enemy they couldn't understand. War Master, the tactical officer reported with fear in his voice. Our losses are becoming unsustainable. These humans fight like demons. Vekler stared at the tactical display, his confidence shaken for the first time in his career. These humans were not like any enemy he had faced. They didn't retreat when outnumbered. They didn't surrender when damaged. They fought with a ferocity that reminded him of the ancient predators of his homeworld. Pull back to long range, he ordered reluctantly. We need to study these creatures before we engage them again. As the Zarthak fleet retreated, Captain Miller opened communications with Admiral Zekthan, who had been watching the battle from a safe distance. Admiral, Miller said, his voice calm despite the fierce fighting. We've driven them off for now. But they'll be back. We need to talk about a long-term strategy. Zekthan stared at the human captain in amazement. The humans had just fought impossible odds and won, and Miller was already planning the next battle. "Captain," Zekthan said quietly. "What are you people?" Miller smiled slightly. "We're just humans, Admiral. And we don't give up." The emergency meeting took place on Admiral Zekthan's flagship 12 hours after the battle at Vexhara Prime. The Kefver command staff filled the briefing room, their large eyes wide with confusion and amazement. The humans sat calmly at the conference table, looking like they had just finished a routine training exercise. "I still cannot believe what I witnessed," Admiral Zekthan said, his voice filled with wonder. 3 ships held off the entire Zarthak advance fleet. "It should have been impossible." Captain Miller shrugged. "We got lucky. They weren't expecting any real resistance." "Lucky?" Commander Kevton spoke up. "Captain, your pilots performed maneuvers that would kill any known species. How do you call that luck?" Lieutenant Amy Clark looked up from her datapad. "Actually, those were pretty standard evasive maneuvers. We train in worse conditions back home." The Kefver officers exchanged glances. Dr. Velleman, the chief medical officer, leaned forward. "I have been studying the battle recordings. Your ships pulled forces of up to 12 Gs during those turns. That should have liquefied your internal organs." 12 Gs isn't that bad," Captain Turner said casually. "Our pilots trained to handle 15 Gs. Military pilots can take even more with the right equipment." Dr. Velleman's hands shook as he made notes. 15 Gs? "Captain Turner, most species lose consciousness at 3 Gs. 5 Gs is fatal to nearly everyone." Commander Stone laughed. "Doc, you should see what our astronauts go through during launch. Or what our test pilots deal with when they break the sound barrier." "Break the sound barrier?" Dr. Velleman whispered. "You mean you intentionally travel faster than sound in your atmosphere?" "Sure," Stone replied. "We've been doing that for over 70 years. It's pretty routine now." Admiral Zekthan felt his world shifting beneath him. "Captain Miller, I think we need to know more about your species, about your world." Miller nodded to Dr. Helen Ross, the human xenobiologist who had joined them from the Wolverine. She was a woman in her 30s with short blonde hair and tired eyes. She had been studying alien biology since first contact. "Admiral, I'd be happy to explain," Dr. Ross said. "But I should warn you, some of this might sound extreme by galactic standards." "Please proceed," Zekthan said. Dr. Ross activated her portable projector, showing an image of Earth from space. "This is our homeworld. As you can see, it's mostly covered by water. About 71% of the surface is ocean." "Oceans," Dr. Velleman noted. "Most worlds have small seas at best. How deep are these oceans?" "The deepest point is over 11 kilometers down," Dr. Ross replied. "The pressure at that depth is over 1,000 times normal atmospheric pressure." Several Kefver officers gasped. Dr. Velleman looked like he might faint. "And you live near these oceans?" Zekthan asked carefully. "Most of our major cities are built on coastlines," Dr. Ross confirmed. "We use the oceans for travel, food, and recreation. Many humans enjoy swimming in them." "Swimming?" Commander Kevton asked weakly. "You voluntarily enter water that could crush you?" Captain Turner smiled. "I grew up in San Diego, spent most of my childhood surfing. That's where you ride waves on a board for fun." Dr. Ross continued her presentation. "Earth's gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared, which I understand is higher than most inhabited worlds. Our atmospheric pressure varies from 14.7 pounds per square inch at sea level to nearly 0 at high altitude." "How high do your people live?" Dr. Velleman asked. "Some of our cities are over 3 kilometers above sea level," Dr. Ross said, "and we have mountain climbers who go much higher. The tallest mountain on Earth is about 8.8 kilometers high." "People," Climb mountains that tall? Zekthan could barely comprehend it. Mount Everest gets climbed by hundreds of people every year, Lieutenant Clark added. It's dangerous, but humans like challenges. Dr. Ross showed the next image, Earth's weather patterns. Our planet experiences extreme weather conditions. Temperatures range from -40 degrees Celsius to +50 degrees Celsius in inhabited areas. -40 degrees? Dr. Velleman was taking notes frantically. That would freeze most biological fluids. Humans live and work in those conditions regularly, Dr. Ross said. In places like Alaska, Siberia, and Antarctica. We also live in deserts where temperatures reach 50 degrees, like in Arizona and Australia. Commander Stone grinned. I'm from Minnesota. -40 is a normal winter day. You just dress warm. And keep moving. The Kefir were silent, trying to process this information. Finally, Zekthan found his voice. Dr. Ross, you mentioned that humans enjoy challenges. Can you explain? Certainly, Dr. Ross replied. Humans actively seek out dangerous situations for entertainment. We have sports where people jump out of flying aircraft, climb sheer rock faces, race vehicles at high speeds, and fight each other in controlled environments. Fight each other? Kevden asked in horror. Boxing, martial arts, wrestling, Captain Miller explained. It's how we test ourselves, how we get stronger. Dr. Ross showed more images. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanoes. Earth is geologically active. We experience regular natural disasters that would destroy most civilizations. How? Do you survive? Dr. Velleman asked. We adapt, Dr. Ross said simply. We build stronger structures, develop better warning systems, and help each other when disaster strikes. Lieutenant Clark pulled up a file on her datapad. Admiral, you mentioned that the Zarthik are apex predators from their homeworld. What kind of predators does their planet have? Zekthan called up the Zarthak biological data. Large burrowing creatures with armored hides. Some flying hunters with razor-sharp talons. Desert serpents with venomous bites. The humans looked at each other and smiled. Dr. Ross nodded. That's actually pretty similar to Earth wildlife. We have large predators too. She showed images of Earth animals, lions, tigers, bears, sharks, crocodiles, venomous snakes, and spiders. These are just some of the predators that humans deal with regularly. Deal with regularly? Dr. Velleman squeaked. Australia alone has over 20 species that can kill you, Lieutenant Clark said cheerfully. Snakes, spiders, jellyfish, octopi, crocodiles, sharks, plus various plants and insects. It's actually a really beautiful place to visit. Commander Stone added, and that's not counting the large predators. Brown bears can weigh over 600 kilograms and run 50 kilometers per hour. Polar bears are even bigger. You share your world with creatures like this? Zekthan asked in amazement. Share is a good word for it, Captain Miller said. We've learned to coexist. Sometimes we compete for the same resources, but usually we just stay out of each other's way. Dr. Ross continued. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We would chase prey animals for hours or even days until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our ancestors survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and mass extinctions. Mass extinctions? Dr. Velleman's voice was barely a whisper. Earth has experienced 5 major extinction events, Dr. Ross explained. Each one killed most of the life on the planet. But life always came back, usually stronger and more adaptable than before. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Admiral Zekthan spoke. Dr. Ross, by galactic standards, your planet sounds like what we would call a death world. A death world? Dr. Ross looked puzzled. I suppose Earth can be dangerous if you're not careful, but it's also incredibly beautiful. The diversity of life, the changing seasons, the vast landscapes. It's home. Commander Kevton found his voice. Captain Miller, when your people received our distress call, did you know you would be fighting the Zarthak? We knew we'd be fighting someone, Miller replied. The details didn't matter much, but the Zarthak are considered the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. Kevton pressed. Captain Turner laughed. Commander, humans have been fighting dangerous enemies since before we invented the wheel. We've fought each other, wild animals, disease, starvation, natural disasters, and environments that actively try to kill us. The Zarthak are just the newest challenge. Lieutenant Clark looked up from her analysis. Actually, Admiral, I've been comparing Zarthak capabilities to Earth equivalents. Their homeworld gravity is about 1.8 times Earth normal, which is heavy but manageable. Their temperature range is narrower than what humans experience, and their atmospheric composition is actually less corrosive than some places on Earth. What are you saying? Zekthan asked. I'm saying that by Earth standards, the Zarthak homeworld is actually pretty mild, Clark replied. Humans have survived in worse conditions for thousands of years. The realization hit the Kethver like a physical blow. They had called for help from what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they had contacted the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Admiral, Captain Miller said gently, I can see this is a lot to process, but I want you to know something important. What is that, Captain? We're on your side, Miller said firmly. Yes, humans come from a harsh world. Yes, we're used to fighting. But we don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight to protect people who can't protect themselves. Commander. Stone nodded. The Zarthak might be tough by galactic standards, but they've never faced Deathworlders who fight back. They're about to learn what humans do when someone threatens innocent people. Dr. Ross closed her presentation. Admiral, there's one more thing you should understand about humans. What is that? We don't know how to give up. It's just not in our nature. The Kethver homeworld had never seen a fleet this large. War Master Thekler brought every ship he could gather. Over 300 vessels of the Zarthak horde. This time there would be no surprises. No impossible maneuvers, no single fighters. Holding off entire squads. This time he would crush these humans and their Kethver allies completely. War Master, reported his tactical officer, we detect 47 Kethver ships and the 3 human vessels. They are forming a defensive line around the planet. Thekler studied the battle display with satisfaction. 50 ships against 300. Even these impossible humans could not overcome such odds. Open communications to all ships. Thekler ordered, today we end this. The humans have shown us new ways to fight, but they cannot change the basic mathematics of warfare. Numbers will defeat them. On the bridge of the Thunderbolt, Captain Miller watched the Zarthak fleet approach. Behind him, Lieutenant Clark worked at her station while the bridge crew prepared for the largest space battle any human had ever fought. Impressive fleet, Miller commented. They really don't like us, do they? Sir, Admiral Zekthan is requesting communication, reported the communications officer. Put him through. Admiral Zekthan appeared on the main screen, his expression worried. Captain Miller, they outnumber us 6-1. Perhaps we should retreat and regroup. Admiral, with respect. Running away isn't really our style, Miller replied. Besides, we have something they don't expect. What is that? Miller smiled. We taught you how to fight back. The battle began with the familiar Zarthak tactic of overwhelming force. But this time, something was different. The Kethver ships did not immediately retreat. Instead, they held formation alongside the human vessels, their weapons firing with new determination. Captain Turner's voice came over the communication channel. All ships, remember what we practiced. Stay close, cover each other, and make every shot count. The Kethver had learned from watching the humans. They used asteroids for cover, coordinated their attacks, and supported each other when damaged. It was not the elegant, civilized warfare they preferred, but at work, Commander Stone led the assault ship Bulldog in a direct charge at the Zarthak center line. This is Stone to all human fighters. Time to show these bugs what we learned in flight school. Major Collins launched from the Wolverine with his squadron of human fighters. But this time, they were not alone. HFY pilots flew alongside them, their ships modified with human weapons and tactics. The peaceful herbivores had learned to be warriors. "Stay with your human wingmen," Collins radioed to the mixed squadron. "Watch how they move, copy what they do. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore." The space battle raged for hours. The Zarthak found themselves facing an enemy that refused to break, refused to retreat, and refused to give up. Every time they destroyed a ship, two more seemed to take its place. The humans had taught the HFY something powerful. Courage was contagious. War Master Thekler watched his carefully planned assault falling apart. How are they doing this? They should have been destroyed hours ago. War Master, his communications officer reported, "We are detecting strange audio transmissions from the human ships." "What kind of transmissions?" "We are not certain. It appears to be some form of rhythmic sound patterns." Thekler ordered the audio to be played on the bridge. Immediately, the bridge filled with something the Zarthak had never heard before: human music. The driving beat of rock and roll, the defiant lyrics of songs about never giving up, never surrendering. "What is this noise?" Thekler demanded. On the human ships, the music played loud and clear. It was not psychological warfare, as the aliens assumed. It was how humans maintained morale during long, difficult battles. The steady rhythm helped them focus. The familiar melodies reminded them of home. And the lyrics spoke of courage in the face of impossible odds. "Turn it up," Captain Miller ordered as his ship shook from enemy fire. "Let's give them the full experience." The music had an unexpected effect on the HFY crews. The alien officers found themselves moving to the rhythm, their fear replaced by determination. The human song spoke of standing together, fighting for what was right, and never backing down. Even without understanding all the words, the HFY felt the power of the message. The turning point came when Commander Stone made a desperate decision. The Zarthak flagship was protected by a wall of smaller vessels, but Stone saw a gap in their formation. "This is Bulldog to all ships," Stone announced. "I'm going for their command ship. Cover me." The assault ship Bulldog broke formation and charged directly at the massive Zarthak flagship. Enemy fire concentrated on the small human vessel, but Stone kept his ship moving, rolling and spinning through the barrage. "Sir, hull integrity at 40%, reported his damage control officer. "Keep us moving," Stone ordered. "We only need to get close." The Bulldog reached the Zarthak flagship and began its attack run. But this time, Stone was not alone. HFY ships followed his lead, adding their firepower to his assault. The peaceful aliens had learned the most important human lesson. Sometimes you had to fight for what you believed in. War Master Thekler felt his ship shake under the combined assault. "Return fire, destroy them." But the humans and their allies were too close, too fast, and too determined. The Bulldog's weapons carved through the flagship's armor while HFY vessels targeted the ship's weapon systems. "Hull breach on multiple decks," came the damage reports. "Engine power failing." For the first time in his military career, Thekler felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They took damage that should have destroyed them and kept fighting. They faced impossible odds and seemed to get stronger. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Ben Carter, the pilot who had crashed on Vexhara Prime, led a boarding party onto the Zarthak flagship. The humans moved through the ship's corridors like they were born for close combat, their weapons precise and deadly. "This is impossible," Subcommander Vextar reported to Thekler. "Humans are fighting hand-to-hand in zero gravity. They should not be able to function in these conditions." But the humans had trained for exactly these conditions. Growing up on a high-gravity world had made them strong. Living with dangerous predators had made them quick. Surviving natural disasters had made them adaptable. Carter and his team reached the bridge just as the ship's main power failed. In the emergency lighting, the human sergeant faced War Master Thekler in single combat. "You want to know what we are?" Carter said as he circled the 8-foot-tall insectoid warrior. "We're the species that survived the Ice Age. We're the people who climbed out of caves and built spaceships. We're humans, and we don't quit." The fight was brief. Thekler was strong and experienced, but Carter had grown up wrestling with his brothers, playing football in high school, and training in conditions that would kill most species. When it was over, the War Master lay defeated on his own bridge. "This is Carter to all ships," the human sergeant radioed. "Zarthek flagship is secure. Their command structure is broken. Across the battle zone, Zarthak ships began to retreat. Without their War Master's leadership, the Horde's discipline collapsed. They had never faced an enemy that could defeat their strongest leader in personal combat. Admiral Zeekthan watched the enemy fleet flee and opened communications to Captain Miller. "Captain, they are withdrawing. You have done the impossible." "Not just us, Admiral," Miller replied. "Your people fought with us. They stood their ground when it mattered most." On the planet below, millions of Kethver watched the battle's end. On their communication screens, they had seen their peaceful fleet transform into warriors, fighting alongside the humans who had traveled across the galaxy to help them. The war was over, but the galaxy had changed forever. News of the human victory spread quickly through the communication networks. 3 small ships had held off the Zarthak Horde. Deathworlders had come to the aid of peaceful civilizations and shown them how to fight back. In the months that followed, the galactic databases were updated. Humanity was reclassified from primitive species to Class 12 Deathworlders with a special notation: approach with respect. Request assistance at your own risk. They will help, but they will do it their way. Captain Miller's final report to Earth Command was simple: mission accomplished. The Kethver are safe. We've made some new friends, and I think we've shown the galaxy what humans are capable of when someone needs our help. Admiral Zeekthan kept a copy of that report in his personal files. Whenever young Kethver officers asked him about courage, he would show them the recording of 3 human ships facing impossible odds. "This," he would tell them, "is what it looks like when someone refuses to give up." The humans had asked for nothing in return. They had traveled across the galaxy, fought against overwhelming odds, and asked only for the chance to help. They had shown the Kethver that sometimes the best backup you could ask for came from the most unexpected places, from a small blue planet where everything tried to kill you, but the people who lived there had learned to fight back.